As I drove into the heart of Pisgah National Forest, excitement coursed through me like the pulse of the engine beneath my feet. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the trees that lined the winding road. I rolled down the window, letting the fresh, earthy scent of pine fill the car. This was what I had been craving, a break from the mundane, a chance to reconnect with nature. But as I ventured deeper, a shiver pricked at my spine, a lingering echo of the stories I'd heard in town. "Hey, Eric, you sure about this?" my friend Jake had asked, concern shadowing his features. "They say people go missing in those woods. Just be careful, okay?" "Come on, Jake," I had laughed, dismissing his fears. "Those are just local legends. Besides, I've got my gear, and I know how to handle myself in the wild. What's the worst that could happen?" But as I navigated the gravel road, memories of those cautionary tales danced in my mind. The locals spoke in hushed tones about eerie whispers and shadows that moved without form. They warned of a darkness that enveloped the forest, a place where the lost were never found. I shook my head, trying to dispel the unease that threatened to creep in. "Folklore," I muttered to myself. "Just stories." Pulling into a small clearing, I parked my car and stepped out, the crisp air filling my lungs. Above, the canopy of leaves swayed gently, whispering secrets I was yet to understand. As I unloaded my gear, I felt a strange chill settle around me, an otherworldly sensation that made the hair on my arms stand on end. I shrugged it off, chalking it up to the fading light of dusk. Setting up my tent became a comforting ritual, a familiar task that grounded me. I secured the last peg into the earth, and as I stood back to admire my handiwork, the forest came alive with a chorus of sounds, the rustling leaves, distant animal calls, and the soft trickle of a nearby stream. It was beautiful, yet something felt off. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. "Okay, Eric, just breathe," I whispered to myself, kneeling by the fire pit to gather kindling. The crackling of the fire would soon drown out my thoughts. But just as I struck the match, a voice, soft and melodic, pierced through the ambient noise around me. It was a whisper, almost like a song, weaving through the trees. I froze, the match flickering in my hand. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling slightly. The whisper faded, replaced by the rustling of leaves. I shook my head, trying to laugh it off. Great, now I'm hearing things. As the fire crackled to life, I settled onto a log, the warmth enveloping me. But that comforting glow did little to dispel the chill that clung to the air. Shadows danced around me, flickering at the edges of my vision. I leaned back, staring into the flames, willing myself to relax. Yet, the whisper returned, clearer this time, almost inviting. It was as if the forest itself was calling to me, pulling me into its depths. "Why do you keep whispering?" I shouted into the darkness, half expecting an answer. Silence answered me, thick and heavy. I was alone, yet I felt anything but. The urge to explore, to uncover the source of that haunting voice, bubbled up within me. Just one little look, I thought. What could it hurt? With that thought echoing in my mind, I stood and took a step toward the darkness, the whisper growing louder, more enticing. My heart raced with a mixture of fear and curiosity. The fire crackled behind me, but the call of the forest was irresistible. I could feel the pull, a magnetic force inviting me to venture deeper into the unknown. "Just a quick peek," I murmured, stepping away from the warmth of the fire, unaware of the dangers that lay ahead. The darkness enveloped me as I trudged deeper into the forest, each step resonating with a mixture of intrigue and dread. The whispers, soft yet insistent, seemed to weave through the trees, beckoning me further into the unknown. I paused, glancing around at the dense thicket that surrounded me, shadows swirling like ghostly dancers in the feeble light of the moon. It was as if the forest had a heartbeat, a pulse that thrummed beneath my feet, synchronizing with the growing unease in my chest. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice trembling slightly. The only answer was the continued whispering, now more pronounced, wrapping around me like an ethereal embrace. "Come closer," it seemed to say, and I felt an inexplicable urge to obey. Each breath I took tasted of damp earth and pine, mixing with the lingering chill in the air. As I moved forward, the trees seemed to loom larger, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. I stopped suddenly as I stumbled into a clearing, the moonlight illuminating what appeared to be a tableau of ancient symbols carved into the bark of the trees surrounding me. My heart raced. These weren't mere markings. They were remnants of something deeper, something sinister. What is this place? I murmured to myself, stepping closer to one of the trees. The symbols danced before my eyes, swirling with a life of their own. I traced one with my fingers, feeling a warmth that contrasted with the cool night air. The whispers intensified, now urgent and pleading, as if they were trying to impart a message to me. I stood frozen, caught in a web of fascination and terror. "Help us," they seemed to chant, a haunting symphony that echoed through the clearing. I shook my head, trying to dispel the growing sense of dread. "I can't help you. I'm just a camper." My voice wavered, the words sounding hollow in the vastness of the forest. Yet, despite my protests, I felt an undeniable connection to the voices, a pull that threatened to consume my very being. Suddenly, a rustling sound behind me made my heart leap into my throat. I whirled around, squinting into the darkness. For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw shadowy figures darting between the trees, their movements swift and elusive. Panic surged through me, and I took a step back, my instinct screaming for me to flee. "Who's there?" I shouted, the bravado in my voice masking the terror that gripped my chest. But the only response was the rustling, growing fainter as I turned back towards the clearing, my mind racing. "I need to get back. I need to go." I shouted into the void, but the whispers morphed into a cruel laughter, mocking my fear. "You can't leave," they taunted, wrapping around me like ivy, tightening their grip. I stumbled back towards the path that led to my campsite, my breath coming in ragged gasps. With each hurried step, the forest seemed to shift around me, branches reaching out like claws, the darkness deepening as if the very shadows conspired against my escape. The whispers echoed in my mind, a relentless chorus that clawed at my sanity. "Stay with us, stay." "No," I yelled, desperation fueling my flight. "I won't be part of this." My heart pounded as I ran, the weight of unseen eyes pressing down on me. I could feel the forest closing in, the path twisting and turning under my frantic feet. I was lost, truly lost, in a maze of darkness and despair. The clearing disappeared behind me, swallowed by the thick foliage, and the whispers grew louder, transforming from pleading to furious. "You belong to us," they shrieked, a cacophony that shattered the night. I burst into a small opening, my campsite barely visible in the distance, but the air felt thick with a malevolence that made my skin crawl. "Please let me go," I gasped, collapsing at the edge of the clearing, my campsite flickering like a beacon of hope. Yet even as I reached for the familiar, the whispers echoed in my mind, taunting and relentless, weaving a tapestry of despair that threatened to ensnare my very soul. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the forest was alive, and it wanted me. The crackling fire provided a sense of comfort, a flickering reminder of the warmth of civilization that felt increasingly distant. I sat on my camping chair, staring into the flames as they danced and swirled, casting long shadows that flickered across the trees. Yet, despite this small reprieve, the whispers were relentless, wrapping around my thoughts like vines. They seemed to echo through the trees, weaving a melody that tugged at something deep within me. "Just the wind," I muttered to myself, shaking my head as if to dislodge the haunting sounds. "You're being ridiculous, Eric. It's just the forest." I took a deep breath, hoping to clear my mind, but the whispers only grew louder, more insistent. "What do you want?" I called out into the dark, half expecting an answer, but only silence met my ears. I pulled out my journal, the pages filled with sketches and thoughts from my journey. I had written about the beauty of the forest, the vibrant greens, and the way the sunlight filtered through the leaves. Yet, now, all I could think of were those symbols I'd seen earlier. They were burned into my mind, each curve and line a reminder of the unknown. I flipped to a blank page and began to sketch them, trying to make sense of their meaning, but the more I drew, the more I felt a shiver run down my spine. Suddenly, a rustling in the underbrush broke my concentration. I snapped my head up, heart racing. "Hello?" I called, my voice wavering. "Is someone there?" No response, just the soft rustle of leaves and the distant call of an owl. I gripped my pen tightly, feeling foolish for talking to the void. The sun rose the next morning, casting a golden glow over the campsite. I stretched, the chill of the night still clinging to my bones. But as I stepped out of my tent, I was met with an unsettling sight. My gear was scattered across the campsite. My backpack, my cooking supplies, even the lantern I had left securely by the fire. "What the hell?" I muttered, kneeling to gather my things. Had someone been here? The thought sent a wave of anxiety through me. I must have left it like this in my sleep, I tried to convince myself, but the rational explanation felt weak against the unease that settled in my gut. I quickly packed my belongings, the whispers still echoing in my mind like an unanswered question. Part of me wanted to flee, to leave this place behind, but another part, the part that had followed the whispers before, urged me to stay. "You can't leave now," I whispered to myself. "You need to understand." Before I could talk myself out of it, I found myself walking back toward the clearing. Each step felt heavier, the air thick with anticipation and dread. As I neared the spot where I had stumbled upon the symbols, I felt a strange pull, as if the forest itself was guiding my footsteps. When I reached the clearing, my breath caught in my throat. The symbols had changed. No longer were they merely intricate designs. They now depicted terrifying images, faces twisted in anguish, hands reaching out as if pleading for help. It was as if the forest had taken the stories of despair and etched them into the bark of the trees. "No," I gasped, stepping closer. "What are you trying to tell me?" The whispers swelled around me, now a cacophony of voices, each filled with a sorrow that seeped into my skin. They urged me to listen, to understand their pain. "What happened to you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, overwhelmed by the raw emotion that filled the air. A chill ran down my spine as I felt the shadows grow denser, pressing in on me. The trees loomed taller, and the whispers became almost deafening. "Help us," they seemed to implore, their urgency clawing at my heart. I staggered back, the weight of their collective despair threatening to pull me under. "I can't help you," I shouted, the words escaping in a rush. I don't know how, but deep down, I felt the truth of their suffering resonate within me, a haunting echo of the loneliness that had driven me into these woods in the first place. As I stood there, the forest closing in around me, I realized I was no longer just an observer. I was part of something far more sinister, a dark web woven through the fabric of the Pisgah National Forest. The whispers were not merely sounds. They were a call to action, a plea for recognition. And I was beginning to understand that to truly escape, I would have to face the darkness that had ensnared so many before me. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows among the trees, I found myself immersed in a whirlwind of thoughts about the forest's dark history. The whispers had become an obsession, a haunting melody that looped in my mind, driving me deeper into the heart of Pisgah. I pulled out my notebook, the pages crinkled from the damp air, determined to document everything I had discovered about this place. The locals had spoken in hushed tones about a cult that had once thrived here, rumored to have performed dark rituals that led to the disappearance of many who dared to venture too far into the woods. My breath quickened as I scribbled down snippets of information I'd overheard, recalling the shadowed faces of townsfolk who warned me to stay away. "They didn't just vanish," I muttered to myself, glancing nervously at the encroaching darkness. "They were taken." As I wrote, the whispers morphed into a chant, echoing through the trees. "Eric, Eric." The sound was both inviting and sinister, tugging at the very core of my being. I could almost feel the presence of the cult members surrounding me, their hollow eyes boring into my soul. Each syllable of my name felt like a thread weaving through the fabric of my sanity, pulling tighter with each repetition. "Stop it," I shouted into the void, my voice cracking. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" The forest fell silent, the abruptness of it causing my heart to race, as if I had disturbed something ancient and slumbering. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to regain control, but the visions began to swirl around me. I saw flashes of figures clad in tattered robes, their faces obscured by shadows, dancing around a fire that flickered with an unnatural glow. They reached out to me, their fingers elongated and skeletal, beckoning with an urgency that made my skin crawl. "Eric," one of them whispered, the voice slithering through the air like smoke. "Join us?" "No, I won't," I gasped, stumbling back, but my feet felt heavy, as if the ground itself was trying to pull me into its depths. I remembered the symbols etched in the clearing, twisted figures depicting agony and despair. They were not just markings. They were warnings, a record of the pain inflicted upon the souls who had crossed paths with this malevolent force. Night had fully descended, and the once comforting glow of my campfire now felt like a fragile beacon against the overwhelming darkness. I could hear the wind rustling through the leaves, but it carried a different tone now, an ominous whisper that sent chills racing down my spine. "You cannot escape," it taunted. "You are one of us." Desperation clawed at me, and I took a deep breath, trying to center myself. "I just need to find a way out," I whispered to myself, though deep down, I feared that the forest had no intention of letting me go. I glanced around, half expecting to see those shadowy figures lurking at the edges of the firelight. I need to understand. I need to know what happened to them. With renewed determination, I grabbed my flashlight and headed toward the clearing again, the whispers urging me forward. Each step felt like a descent into madness, the air thick with an energy that crackled like static. As I approached the clearing, I could see the symbols glowing faintly, pulsating with a life of their own. They seemed to shift and change, revealing new forms that twisted through my mind, echoing the despair of the lost souls. "What do you want from me?" I shouted into the night, my voice full of defiance, but the response was a cacophony of whispers, rising in a crescendo that threatened to drown me. "Eric, Eric, you must listen." I could feel the ground shifting beneath my feet, disorienting me as if the very landscape was alive, reshaping itself to confuse me further. "No, I can't." I tried to retreat, but the trees closed in around me, their gnarled branches reaching out like the fingers of the damned. "Join us," the voices pleaded, their tones now desperate, filled with the weight of countless souls seeking release. I staggered back, terror seizing my heart. "I won't become like you," I yelled, but my resolve began to waver as their pleas intensified, merging into a singular scream of anguish that tore at my sanity. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming urge to flee, to escape the clutches of this nightmarish reality. But as I turned to run, the forest shifted again, and the path I had once known seemed to vanish, leaving me standing in an endless expanse of darkness. The whispers evolved into shrieks, echoing the torment of those who had come before me, drowning out my thoughts and leaving me with an unbearable sense of dread. "Eric!" The name lingered in the air, a haunting reminder of the choice I had to make. I was trapped in a cycle, ensnared by the very forest I had sought to explore. I had come seeking adventure, but the whispers had revealed a truth far darker than I could have imagined. I was no longer just a visitor. I was a part of the forest's haunting legacy, and I could feel its grip tightening around me. As I stumbled through the dense underbrush, a sense of dread weighed heavily on my chest. The whispers had grown louder, weaving through the trees like a sinister melody. I felt drawn to them, as if they were threads of fate pulling me closer to a truth I wasn't ready to confront. The air was thick with tension, and I could almost taste the fear that clung to the damp earth. Suddenly, I tripped over an unseen root and fell to my knees. As I caught my breath, I noticed a narrow opening in the rocks ahead, almost hidden by the overgrowth. The whispers intensified, beckoning me. I hesitated, my heart pounding like a drum in my ears, but curiosity outweighed my fear. I crawled into the cave, the darkness swallowing me whole. Inside, the cave was cooler, a stark contrast to the oppressive heat outside. My flashlight beam danced across the walls, illuminating strange markings that seemed to writhe and shift under my gaze. They were symbols, arcane and unsettling. As I ventured deeper, I stumbled upon a collection of artifacts scattered around. A rusted dagger, fragments of pottery, and bones, yellowed and cracked. They spoke of a time long past, of rituals performed in the name of something ancient and powerful. "Who are you?" I whispered into the stillness, my voice barely breaking the oppressive silence. The whispers seemed to respond, rising and falling like the tide, urging me to listen, to understand. I stepped forward, and my foot struck something solid. I looked down to find a stone altar, adorned with offerings long forgotten. At its center was a grotesque statue, depicting a figure with hollow eyes, its mouth twisted in a silent scream. The air thickened, and I felt a rush of cold, as if the very essence of the cave was alive, watching me. "Please, help us," a voice echoed, clear and desperate. It wasn't just whispers anymore. It was a plea from the depths of despair. I turned, searching for the source, but found only shadows. "Who are you?" I called out again, feeling the weight of their sorrow press against me like a physical force. "Help us break free," the voice continued, reverberating in my mind. "You must understand what we sacrificed." As I stood there, the realization crashed over me like a wave. This cave was a shrine, a testament to the dark rituals that had ensnared so many souls. I was not just an observer. I was part of this twisted narrative. The whispers morphed into a cacophony, chanting in an ancient tongue, demanding my attention. The weight of their despair pressed on my chest, and I felt my sanity teetering on the edge. A part of me screamed to flee, to escape this place and the torment that lingered within its walls. But another part, darker, more curious, urged me to delve deeper into the mystery, to uncover the truth of their sacrifice. Then, amidst the chaos of voices, a single thought crystallized in my mind. I had to make a choice. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, drowning out my thoughts. They wanted something from me, a price for my freedom. I could feel the weight of their expectations, their hopes resting on my shoulders. "Sacrifice," the voice whispered again, softer this time, coaxing me. "One must pay the price for another to escape." I staggered back, my heart racing. The idea of sacrifice twisted my insides, knotting my stomach with fear and reluctance. Who would I sacrifice? Could I even consider such a thing? The thought of becoming one of them, a mere whisper lost in the void, chilled me to the bone. "No," I shouted, my voice echoing against the cave walls. "I won't be part of this." But the whispers only grew more frantic, as if my resistance fueled their desperation. I could see flashes of faces, lost souls trapped in an endless cycle of despair, their eyes pleading for release. I felt tears sting my eyes as I recognized the futility of my struggle. I was ensnared, just another player in their dark game, and the realization hit me like a punch to the gut. "Your fate is entwined with ours," the voices sang, a haunting chorus that filled the cave. "Embrace it, or be consumed." I wanted to scream, to run, but my feet felt rooted to the ground. I could see my own reflection in the darkness, a figure lost among shadows, and the weight of the decision pressed down on me. The whispers, once alluring, now felt like chains, binding me to a destiny I had never chosen. In that moment, surrounded by the remnants of the past, I knew I was standing on the precipice of something terrible. My heart raced as I contemplated the price of my escape and the weight of the souls that hung in the balance. The whispers echoed in my mind, a relentless reminder of the choice I had to make, one that would forever alter my fate. I stumbled back from the cave, the chilling whispers clawing at my sanity. They swirled around me like a tempest, each voice a fragment of the souls who had been lost to this malevolent forest. I could feel their desperation, a collective yearning that seeped into my bones. "Eric," they called, their voices a haunting symphony that echoed my name, mingling with the rustling leaves and distant cries of creatures unseen. "Leave me alone," I shouted, my voice cracking under the weight of their sorrow. I pressed my hands against my ears, but the whispers only grew louder, more insistent. It was as if the forest itself was alive, pulsating with dark energy that sought to consume me. I ran, my heart racing, but the path ahead twisted and turned, disorienting me. Every tree looked the same, every shadow a threat. "Please, Eric," a voice broke through the cacophony. It was softer, more pleading. "Help us. We just want to be free." I froze, the plea resonating in my chest. I turned toward the darkness, willing to confront whatever lay ahead. "Who are you?" I asked, my breath hitching. The shadows shifted, and I saw fleeting glimpses of their faces, hollow eyes filled with a profound sadness. "We are lost," the voice replied, echoing my own despair. "We have been trapped here for so long. You can break the cycle." My resolve wavered. "How?" I demanded, desperation creeping into my tone. "What do you want from me?" "You must understand," the voice said, the urgency palpable. "The forest demands a sacrifice. Only then can we be free." My heart sank as I processed their words. A sacrifice? The thought sent shivers down my spine. "I can't," I whispered, shaking my head. "I can't do that." "But what if you could save us?" Another voice chimed in, pleading. "What if you could give us the peace we crave?" Their words hung in the air, heavy with sorrow and longing. I took a step back, the weight of their gazes bearing down on me. I could feel the pull of their anguish, the magnetic force that urged me to give in. "No," I shouted, feeling a surge of defiance. "I won't be another whisper in this damned forest." I turned to run, but the ground shifted beneath me, and I stumbled, falling to my knees. The whispers intensified, a chaotic blend of despair and anger. "Listen," they cried, their voices merging into one. "You must choose, Eric. You can end our suffering, or you can join us." The urgency in their tone ignited a flicker of hope within me. Maybe there was a way to save them without losing myself. "What if I can help you find peace without sacrificing my life?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You don't understand," the voices wailed, drawing closer. "The forest will never let you go. You are already part of its tapestry. Only through sacrifice can you truly set us free." The realization crashed over me like a wave. I was ensnared in this web of despair, a thread intertwined with countless others. As the weight of their words settled in, I felt a strange calm wash over me. Perhaps this was my purpose, my calling. If I could save them, maybe I could find redemption in this cursed place. "I'll do it," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll sacrifice myself." The voices erupted into a chorus of relief, their sorrow momentarily lifting. "Thank you, Eric," they chorused, their tones mingling in a haunting yet beautiful harmony. "You will bring us peace." With trembling hands, I stepped forward, surrendering myself to the forest. As I felt the ground beneath me shift and pulse, a sense of tranquility enveloped me. The whispers wrapped around me like a warm embrace, and I closed my eyes, accepting my fate. But as I surrendered, a terrifying realization struck me. I had become just another whisper. The forest consumed me, and I was trapped, my voice now mingling with the others, forever lost in the endless cycle of despair. I could feel the pull of new souls wandering too close, their curiosity leading them into the depths of the forest. "Help us," I would whisper, knowing that I could never truly save them. I was now part of the very darkness I sought to escape, repeating the cycle for eternity. If you like this supernatural story, subscribe, like, and comment, and see the next supernatural horror story.